Sex and Sensuality, the podcast, where we speak what your dirty mind thinks. We are here every Monday night at 9 p.m. chatting about tantalizing topics that most won't dare say aloud. Hello, and welcome to Sex and Sensuality, the podcast with Miss Mika and Miss Gigi. Girl, it has. Hey, how are you doing?
Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I'm so glad we are back.
I know, me too. So, guys, as you know, I had a baby. So I have been on maternity leave, taking a break, taking in all the goodness of mommyhood and being a mom again to a new little baby. So I have a 5-year-old and now a 3-month-old. So I'm thinking it is time to get back on the horse and ride it and do this podcast.
Oh, with the sexual undertone, see? That's the way to come back, honey. That's the way to come back.
That is the way to come back. I'm back in the saddle. So we have a good topic for you guys today, but I do want to let you know that we have missed you and we're so happy to be back and we cannot wait to just start sharing again all these wonderful things that come into our head that we want to talk about. So today we're discussing the oral cancer, quote unquote, epidemic, as well as HSV1 and HSV2, because that has been such a thing as well in social media. So let's get started. Gigi, tell me your thoughts on this oral cancer, quote unquote, epidemic.
Let me tell you something. When I first heard this, right, it was like in a little group thing going around. People were talking about it, and I'm going, what are they talking about? Because when you think about oral sex, that is definitely not something you would even put two together, oral sex and cancer. I'm like, what? So it started making me, do some reading and research, and you and I were talking about it. And I was like, to find out that it is higher than throat cancer with tobacco use, which I know, I don't smoke. And my uncle passed of cancer and having throat cancer, which spread. And I'm like, all I ever knew was that to be an issue because I knew that he smoked a lot of cigarettes. So it made sense. But now older people could actually be getting this, not just because of smoking, but because of their sexual partners. That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we got to go back to HPV because that is what's the cause, quote unquote, cause of the, let me stop saying quote unquote, Lord. HPV is the cause of the oral cancer. And it was a big thing back in the day because I cannot remember, was it the dude that played Kramer on Seinfeld? I think he said that he got oral cancer from oral sex. But what he had was, from what I'm reading now, was the HPV, because I cannot remember how to pronounce that word. Say it, girl. Human
papillomavirus.
That's right, human papillomavirus. So human papillomavirus, was something that was really big starting in like 2009, I believe it was, where they were noticing that it was coming up in teens and young women. So they developed a vaccine and they said that it was because of sexual behaviors that HPV would develop. And then it could turn into cancer later on. So that's what they're noticing now with oral sex is that people are becoming infected with HPV through oral sex. And what happens is, most of the times HPV just completely clears on its own, but some people develop symptoms strong enough that they're not able to even get rid of the infection. And then it basically replicates in some of your cells in some of your DNA, and then it becomes cancerous later on. And that's what's happening with this oral cancer. So they call it oral pharyngeal cancers.
Hmm.
Pharyngeal cancer.
Quite interesting and again, scary because we recognize that, we just with oral sex is, I remember back in the day, that was just so taboo to even say that you were having oral sex. That, it had so many different terms for it, and no one wanted to even be recognized as doing it,
Mm-hmm.
being a part of it. Now it's more prevalent, of course. It's talked about just like you brushing your teeth. So
Mm-hmm.
think about how many people have oral sex and don't even have intercourse. Those partners could be so much more than the ones
Mm-hmm.
I have intercourse with. And that's what is driving this.
I agree. And I do remember back in the day it was taboo. It was taboo for the Black women. Like Black girls were like, I don't do that.
I know.
You know, now they did it probably in private, but nobody talked about it. They did
Mm-hmm.
not talk about it. But now it's such a big thing, especially amongst our teens. They
So,
use oral sex in place of quote unquote regular sex. Their head oral sex is not sex.
but
That
even
is just mhm.
in the day were the same way. They wouldn't even let their boys know they were doing that. They'd be like, "Oh, luncheon, what the heck?" Mm-mm. They wouldn't talk about that.
Mm.
They wouldn't.
But now teens are doing it more and more, and so our teens are really more affected. Teens and young adults are more affected by this than by oral cancers from HPV. Let me say that
Yeah.
than our older generation, because again, most teens are looking at it as this is not sex.
Right. No, they don't see it as being sex at all. They say,
Mhm.
even though the word is in there, right? I don't understand. Like, like, what do you mean it's not sex? It's called oral sex, right? Okay. Well, yeah, they don't see it as the same. Though one of the things is, I don't know if this is part of the reason that teen pregnancy is that, has went down drastically over the. So I don't know if that's because of that, but
Well, what I do think is the morning after pill is more readily available.
yeah,
Now, also different forms of birth control is more readily available because back in the day, if you didn't go to a health department, you had to pay for it. You had to go to the doctor and get a prescription and all of that. Now you could order some forms of the morning after pill online. You could go to the pharmacy and buy it yourself. You don't need your parents' permission.
in some states now, don't
In
forget.
some states, yeah, some states, not all states, of
Correct.
course. Yeah, not all states. But I'm just saying, before Roe versus Wade was overturned,
Yeah.
that morning after pill was more readily available. Condoms are more easily attainable now. And again, birth control is more easily attainable. Now it's free. Well,
Yeah.
it was free before Roe versus Wade. We know that has changed a lot. So we don't know what the teen pregnancy rate is going to look like now.
That's
Now
true.
that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. So that's yet to be seen, but definitely before Roe versus Wade, yes, it was on a decline, but I think it was because of those particular reasons that it was on a decline.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, the oral sex thing probably helped, and girls doing it anally because they still don't think that's sex too. If it's not vaginally, most teenagers feel like it's not sex, which is crazy, which is why we're going to do a topic on teen sex and how to talk to your kids about sex. I feel like it has to be an ongoing conversation from the time they're like 3 or 4. And it's tailored to their age because normally around 3 or 4, they're curious about where babies come from, where they came from, and then they start noticing their little body parts. So, we tailor it based on their age, but it has to be an ongoing conversation. So we're going to talk about that next time.
Right. That's going to be a good conversation.
Yes, I really do think so. So it says oral pharyngeal cancer is the main risk factor. The main risk factor is the number of lifetime sexual partners, especially oral sexual partners. So again, I feel like it's, from what we've been reading and talking about and researching, it's definitely higher among teens and young adults, but it can increase the more sexual partners you've had over your lifetime. Your
Right.
risk increases.
And it's interesting because came out this topic, this specific subject. I don't think people even put a number to their sexual partners when it came to just oral sex. Like I said,
Mhm.
them in two different buckets.
Yeah.
Oral sex partners versus, intercourse partners, never seeing the two as being as one. And now to look at it on this spectrum is definitely something that is having not just us here talking about it, but we're talking about as high up as the medical, you know, parts of our government because they're seeing such a rise in it and then how it's affecting us overall. With
Yeah.
cancer being one of the major things in death amongst us, it's definitely another way for them to gauge numbers. I mean, I
Mhm.
that HPV, they come with having something that they can give to the young children at a younger age to help, but it's not something that's fail safe. We don't really know what that is doing and helping.
Mhm.
We can
Mhm.
have that conversation like we're doing now, and letting people understand that it too is a risk for you.
Yeah, that is true. So it's just about being safe. It's making safe choices. STDs, they're here to stay for whatever reason. Because, well, let me stop saying that. Let me not say for whatever reason. But STDs are here to stay because we're not practicing safe. We're not having safe sexual practices.
Right?
So the more safe sex we engage in, whether oral, and people don't think about protecting themselves orally.
No.
They don't think about that. They're like, oh, okay, I suck his dick. And then, but he's gonna wear a condom if we have sex because I don't
Well,
want an STD. But they forget that you can get STD in your mouth.
mhm.
And that leads us to our next topic, which is HSV1 and HSV2. People again think that they're protecting themselves by using a condom sexually, but they don't mean vaginally penetration. Let's say penetration, vaginal or anal, but they're not thinking about protection when it comes to oral sex. It's like, okay, I'll suck it. Why he doesn't have on a condom, but he's gonna have to put on a condom. And I'm gonna tell you why I think this is the case. Because a lot of women are worried more about pregnancy than they're
Right.
worrying about preventing an STD.
Yeah. So true. I believe that too.
Because they're like, well, I don't want to get pregnant. And then, but they may not end up pregnant, but they may end up with a lifetime STD. They may end up with HIV
Mm-hmm.
or herpes
Yeah.
because we know herpes is lifetime as well.
Or they could end up with something, gonorrhea, syphilis,
Syphilis.
which
Yeah,
can chlamydia, which long term, some of those diseases can make you infertile, and then you won't have to worry about getting pregnant.
I know that's right. So let's talk about HSV1 and 2. So and let's talk about the oral form since we're talking about oral STDs in general. Well, we talk about HPV, which is the oral form of it can be an oral form of STD. So with
Sores, girl, because cold sores.
yes, cold sores are less taboo when it comes to HSV1 because most people, it comes to herpes because cold sores are herpes, but people don't want to say that. They want to say cold sore
Yeah.
and they want to make it like it's not an STD, but it can be an STD. It's not always from a sexual transmitted, it's not always sexually transmitted because some babies get it from um, adults kissing them, in the mouth or on the face or whatever if they have a cold sore present. So we know that kids can get it from being kissed by an adult. So that's not sexual. Most of the, if they're just kissing them, hello, or whatever, that we know that's not sexual. So we're not going to be facetious and say that it is always an STD. But I mean, it is always an STD. but it can be from sexual practices. And I think people need to remember that when it comes to comparing it to genital herpes, because they will say in a heartbeat, genital herpes is the worst. I can't believe you have genital herpes. I can't believe you have HSV2. I can't believe it. But they walking around with their cold sores that they got from sucking somebody dick or eating someone's pussy.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
kissing someone on the mouth while they was engaging in sex.
Mm-hmm.
So I
And you see
think
more people also, especially there's some people I know that have them all the time.
oh my
And
God.
again, they never reference it or look at it as something that they got later on in life, probably some, if they did, through sexual transmission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a
And
lot of times it is because of sexual transmission.
yeah,
Most of the time.
I can't stand to see people that have that and then they have little kids and they're kissing. I'm like, don't you realize that what you have is open and spreadable? Like,
Right.
don't do that. To me, you are now giving that child a lifetime sentence. It might just, when you say cold sore, because now they have things that you could put on and make it go away a little faster. Well, why should they even be subjected to that?
Exactly. They shouldn't be subjected to that. And it's I feel like because it looks painful. I don't have it, but
Me
it
either.
looks painful.
It does. I
It
don't have it.
looks painful. And even so it's like if you know you got that much pain, be careful.
Mhm.
Be careful with other people. And not to mention HSV2 normally comes from someone who has HSV1 because they're going down, they're performing oral sex on someone who does not have HSV1 or 2, but they're performing oral sex on that person. And that's what makes it HSV2 just because of where it presents itself.
Right.
But if you know you have a cold sore, you shouldn't be performing oral sex with anyone because that is how that person gets HSV2.
Mm-hmm.
You're performing oral sex on them. So if you have it, protect yourself, protect your partner by not engaging in sexual activities until those sores have gone away. We know that oral herpes, genital herpes, they last a lifetime. They can be they're spreadable even if you don't have any symptoms. So even if you don't have a visible sore, it's still spreadable because you could have a sore in your mouth that you don't recognize. You could have one in your vaginal canal or on your penis that you haven't noticed, one anally that you haven't noticed, and it can still spread. Also, it's most contagious during the prodromal stage. And the prodromal stage is when people who have it, you feel that little tingling that starts, and sometimes you recognize it, sometimes you don't recognize it. But it's a little tingling that starts right before it break your mouth or your vag or your genitals break out.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an infectious stage as well. And the reason why I say it's most infectious during then, because most people don't know they're experiencing a herpes outbreak in that moment. They're not
Right.
paying attention to it. So you're not using precaution. If you're someone who does use precaution when you have an outbreak, you're not using precaution at that time most of the time. And now you're more likely to spread it.
I think, again, very reckless sometimes in decision making, or it could be the fact that they just really don't know, right? And which again brings us to why we do what we do, because we need more people to understand the ramifications of the decisions that we make, especially when it comes to our sex life. And those innocent, like children who you're just wanting to hug and give kisses to, but not understanding that what you are doing in the middle of your outbreak could be affecting them later on in life. So
That is true.
making sure that we know we need to understand what we are doing, especially with our bodies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I do want to tell women too, if you have genital herpes and you are thinking about becoming pregnant, you want to make sure, or you do become pregnant, make sure you let your doctor know, your OB know that you do have a herpes, genital herpes, because what they will do is make sure you're on a preventative, but they'll make sure you're taking your medication at least 30 to 45 days before your due date so that you cannot spread. Oh, it's valcyclovir. That's what it is. Valcyclovir. That's one of the most common medications for oral and genital herpes, honestly. They will make sure you're taking your meds at least 45 to 30 days before you have your baby, because what can happen is your baby can get oral herpes and can contract herpes as they come through your birth canal, and it gets into their eyes, and it can be very deadly for babies. So if you know you're pregnant, make sure, take away the shame. If you never told anyone, tell your OB.
That's right.
So that you can help prevent that from your baby. Because again, it can be very, very deadly. And then what they also do is they look for sores in your vaginal canal. They use special tools to look for sores in your vaginal canal to make sure that you don't have it. So if they are aware of it, they're going to do their best to help prevent that from happening to your child. And then if you do have an outbreak, then more than likely they're going to do a C-section to avoid your child catching it. So it's important. Also, to help prevent it from spreading to others, keep drinking cups and utensils, towels, and washcloth separate from others if you know you're having an outbreak. In general, it's probably good to keep some of those things separate if you know you have those outbreaks commonly anyway. But when you're having an outbreak, for sure, keep those things separate. Make sure you're washing your utensils very well. You definitely don't want to share your towel with your partner. And I know a lot of people do that, but I like to keep my towel stuff separate anyway.
Yeah, that's the truth. And it's so funny, girl. I don't even use a towel. I dry off with a washcloth. I don't even use a towel.
Well, that's interesting. Girl, with all that bad, how long it take you to dry?
I don't know why. I think because it's so dry, it's kind of, even though it's soft with, I still just do it with the washcloth. And I've gotten a habit of that. So, which in a way now, because of the towel not being used or mistakenly used, nobody hardly ever mistakes the washcloth, right? As long as you have different colors, you try to differentiate when you have your partner. I don't know. It just works. I don't
Girl, you are so funny. But I think about my child growing up and stuff like that, just teaching her, keep your washcloth separate, keep your towels separate. I teach her that now. Like, we have our towels and our washcloth all color coordinated on different hooks, so we know which is which. Not gonna mistake it, but it's just good, a hygienic habit to have, regardless if you have an STD or not.
Right.
My grandma used to tell us, always wipe off with your washcloth first, so you're not soaking the floor and you're not soaking your towel. So
that's what I do. I just keep going. Just the whole thing.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
That's what it was. That's what started it. Probably thinking like that because your towel up is wet and then eventually it'll start smelling. I just kept using the washcloth. It was.
Yeah, and then you should change your towels often anyway, like at least every 2 to 3 days, 3 to 4 days. Change those towels, and when your kids get old, you want to change them even more, honey, because Lord. The other thing, don't kiss others, during your most infectious time. And that is, again, what I said, when you feel that tingling or burning, that's your most infectious time. But from that moment until that sore is gone, don't kiss others, abstain from sex, oral, anal, and vaginal, just to avoid spreading that to someone else. Of course, wash your hands often because it can be easily spread from your mouth or your vaginal area to your eyes, and it can lead to blindness. So the reason why I brought this up is because I was talking to my friend and she had read an article on social media where this girl, unfortunately, she was sexually assaulted, and the boy got genital herpes from the sexual assault.
Hmm.
They started blaming her for spreading it to him. And I'm like, and it was like, well, you should have told him. And oh my gosh, I can't believe you have HSV too. How did you must be a hoe? All this stuff. And I'm like,
How does
what?
a victim become the assailant, right? Like he assaulted her and then they blame her for giving him herpes. I didn't
Exactly.
consciously want to have sex with you. Otherwise, you would have known. This he took that from her, and that's what he got.
And that's what he got. That was, you know what, in my head, that was justice in a sense, some form of justice, a form of justice, because hopefully his butt went to jail. But yes, I agree. They turn her into the assailant and then in victim blame, which is something that's very common, unfortunately, on sexual assaults. But yeah, victim blamed her. And then that conversation turned into, well, genital herpes is so bad and you must be a hoe. Or if somebody has it, that means they a hoe. They've been out doing this and doing that. And I'm like, no, it can
Mm.
take one time, just like pregnancy can take one time, HIV can take one time. You don't have to be a hoe to get an STD.
Right.
You could just, it's one lapse of judgment.
Yeah, but even then, it's not even you sometimes, right? Because you could be in a committed relationship or married, and your partner stepped
Mhm.
and brought something back to you that you had nothing to do with.
And that was going to be my next point. Sometimes is you have taken precautions. You think you're in a monogamous relationship with someone, and now they went and bought you an STD.
Yeah.
So anything can happen, and people, and we're all susceptible to it. No one is immune to getting the STD. And then some people don't even know they have genital herpes for years because it will lay dormant in the body. They don't know they have oral herpes for years because it can lay dormant in the body. Then one day, all of a sudden, you have an outbreak. So you don't even know. But anyway, it made me want to talk about that topic because people put such an emphasis on genital herpes and they never focus on oral herpes. They're both can be obtained the exact same way through sexual means and through unsafe sexual practices.
Mm.
And people have to realize that and understand that it is about protecting yourself sexually more so than it is about the actual STD.
Yes.
Protect yourself,
Oh,
protect others around you.
and I want to say, I think one of the other important pieces to that is don't hold shame behind it because that
Mhm.
will cause you to think that you shouldn't be in relationships. Just be honest when just like anything else, it's about communication, right?
Yeah.
So, to a relationship with someone, be honest. Once you decide to have sex, let them know
Yeah.
your status and allow them, I know it's scary, but allow them to know your truth. And that's where taking the time to know someone comes from, right? Not just jumping into bed, you met them yesterday and
Mhm.
today. Getting to know someone because their feelings and connection to you is so much stronger than what's between your legs, right? So you
Yes.
have those conversations, be upfront and honest, and make yourself open to love regardless. Don't hold on to the shame behind that.
I definitely agree with you. And that's why it's so important that we understand that oral herpes can lead to genital herpes and being able to be open and not just put it off as oh, it's just a cold sore. Don't put it off as just a cold sore. Be honest about it, right? So that the other person knows too, because they need to make a healthy choice when it comes to oral sex with you too.
That's right.
But I agree with you. Let's take away the shame, the blame from both of those, because sometimes people feel a little shame when it comes to cold sores too. So let's take away the shame from that and be honest with your partners in the beginning. That's the best time to lay everything out on the table, right? And I agree with you, taking the time to get to know the person makes a difference because everyone is not going to react the same, but you want to take the time to get to know the individual so that when you do tell them this, you kind of can gauge, maybe understand what their reaction may be, right? If you
Right.
know you've been talking to this person, they've been making all kinds of mean statements about STDs, or they've been sexually shaming other people, or their sexual practice have been unscrupulous or whatever, or this is someone that you don't even want to move forward within a relationship. Okay, you don't need to tell them that because you ain't having sex with them anyway. But if it's somebody that you truly love, you truly feel like y'all are going to move to the next step of sex, then yes, it's time to open up and tell that person. But you want to get to know the person well enough first to even see if you want to take that next step before
That-
sharing your sexual history with them, your medical history with them, because doesn't need to know that.
That's right.
Okay, well, I think this has been a great discussion. How you feeling, girl, being back?
I am happy to be back. I'm so glad. I was missing it, missing our conversations. Mostly, getting the information out there. So much has happened since we haven't been on the air, and so much to talk about. So we definitely got to catch up. Get the people. Up.
Yes, we got to catch y'all up, y'all. So we'll be back. We're going to still have our shows every Monday at 9 p.m. So look forward to our shows. We're also, guys, introducing a new show. We'll tell y'all more about that next show. Yes, I'm really excited about that one. So y'all going to be able to see us on two different platforms. We're hear us on one, see us on another. And we cannot wait to get into that next week. We'll talk more about that show. Okay. I hope y'all have a great day. It was so good to be in internet land with y'all again.
I know it's so strange, but we're so at the same time.
Exactly. All righty. I hope y'all have a great evening, and make sure you subscribe, share, and keep listening out for us. Talk to y'all soon. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Sex and Sensuality, the podcast.